please request the speakers and the guests to sit near the two front rows, please. And also the students, we'd like to encourage you to sit in the front rows, the near rows to the stage, so you could hear the speakers better. Thank you. Once again, to those who just came in, I'd like to request you to please sit closer to the stage. Thank you. Once again, may we request the students and the guests as well to sit closer to the stage. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome once again to our conference today. And let me introduce the speaker, the first speaker for this afternoon. He will talk about the restoration works of wooden buildings in Japan. From Nara Women's University, help me welcome Professor Ueno Kunikazu. A round of applause, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Now, today there are various topics faced to disaster, but my presentation is not them. My presentation is general problem, general topic in Japan. And another different, perhaps I am oldest speaker today. Perhaps. Anyway, my presentation is the restoration work of wooden building in Japan. Mainly four topics. At first, I introduce wooden building in Japan. And second, weak point of wooden building. Third, restoration work in Japan. And finally, cooperation between Philippines and Japan. Of course, generally said, Japanese culture depends on wood, for wood material. There are many buildings in wood, not only building, but also many handicrafts made by wood. And Japanese custom or idea depend on long time life in wooden structure, wooden culture. I introduce some Japanese traditional building because before I introduce restoration work, perhaps I am afraid many persons cannot see me, did not see the Japanese building. Some religious building. At first, I have to say, my presentation is not finished because I have not enough time to prepare this presentation. And second, presentation time too shortly. But I hope participants can understand the outline of restoration work of wooden building in Japan. This is also of Buddhist monastery, pagoda, some also religious building, shrine, Shinto shrine building, castle and tea house, some domestic building in Japan. When we talk about wooden building, it's not same construction. We have various wooden construction like this. And wooden construction is very simply, it's meaning various parts combined next by next. It is a basic construction of basic wooden construction. So it meaning it is easy. Of course, building built by bottom and next by next upper part. It meaning we know the method of building. We take off next by next upper part. The picture is a combination of materials wooden construction. And when we talk Japanese culture building, from bottom we separate 6 parts from bottom: foundation and floor construction, and main construction, and beam construction, roof construction, and roof. But I say again, the wooden construction combined by many parts like this. Anyway, wooden construction have mainly 3 weak points, I think. First, fire, and water or humidity, and third is white and termite. The west picture damage of rain, and the lower picture damaged by white ants. And also fire, cause of many kind of reason. Sometimes battle or earthquake. And against fire, we have many methods: fire prevention or fire fighting. And we need to the fire prevention and firefighting against fire for continue the building. And when we restore the wooden building, we have to change damaged part to new one. Like that, the lower part of pillar is changed. Also, this is the bottom of pillar was changed. And when in Japan, restoration work, we have 4 phases or 4 categories: full dismantle. And second is semi-dismantle. Third is repair in small scale. Fourth is renovation of roofing. Dismantle work is it is possible to take off X-Manex from top to down. If we know the correctly, it is no problem to take off X-Manex. You can understand if you know how to make this construction, it is easy. At first, to cut the rope, and second, some rafter, beam. This is renovation of roofing. The upper picture is, you can understand, some color is different. Right side and center, it's meaning a different date of roof type. The right side is the most new type of roof type. And this is renovation of flat roof. Also, renovation such as roof with corporate or villagers. But ancient time, before modern time, corporate by villagers, but now is not only villagers, many volunteers came from city. This is traditional, the drawing of traditional work. This is also after restoration of domestic house in old town. And this is also the same house, restoration work. Sometimes we have to reinforce by the new timbers, like this cross timbers. In Japan, we have many old traditional buildings. For example, Horyuji is built at first end of 9th century, and many religious buildings, 300, 400, it's popular. It's meaning long or long living building by repeating restoration. It is very important. Repeating restoration and good maintenance, it keep long life of building, good building. And when we have to change some part, especially damaged part, to new one in good building, I show some restoration work. The left picture is damaged. Some strong typhoon came here and big tree fall down to pagoda. And then we restored this pagoda and go back to original figures. It also, the before restoration, left side and right side is after restoration. So it's meaning if very big damage in good building, if you restore, it will come back to good condition like this. It's also restoration work sample. The roof in the weaving, but after restoration, the slate and get good condition. You can understand the new timbers in the roof construction. A little bit white band is new, but some black band is keep original. Also same, sometimes we have to change or attach new materials. This is some example of connection. We know how to connect. It meaning it is easy to how to take off. Another, this is the traditional coloring, like this, but this is also restoration work. And the another problem, we have to build scaffold around the building. It's a big hole in Nara and big scaffold. And in the scaffold, we carry out the restoration work in safety and against the fire, against rain. Now, like this iron construction, and sometimes we have to carry out the archaeological survey during the restoration work. And coloring. And we have many problems, management and finance and material and method. Because it is best to be, it is best use the original timbers, but sometimes it is difficult to get same original kind of tree. So it's meaning a little bit change. Similar kind of tree, but a little different. And final work is we don't use modern tools for final work, but before final work, we use modern tools like this. And you find traditional tools and modern tools. And I introduced some special association in Japan, Bunkenkyo, JACAM, the Japanese Association for Conservation of Architect Monument. This association carry out almost of restoration work in Japan. If someone interested, please open the homepage of this association. I hope, of course, my presentation or Japanese experience directly, perhaps not don't directly to useful for restoration work in Philippines, but I think experience and method and idea in Japan perhaps useful for thinking to restoration work of wooden building in Philippines. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Ueda. For our next speaker, he will talk about the structural rehabilitation of damaged historical stone churches, the review of monitoring mission to the Pauai World Heritage Church, and introduction of ICOMOS recommendations. From Mie University, ICOMOS Japan, help me welcome Professor Toshikazu Hanazato. A round of applause, please.
Thank you, Chairman, for your introduction of my presentation. And first of all, I would like to thank Professor Jimenez Sensei and Professor Miyake Sensei and the organizing committee members for giving me the opportunity to present here. So I prepared two topics, and in addition, so I will also present another topics of the safer housing in Philippines. The first topics, ICOMOS monitoring mission to the Power Church in 2000. I was sent to the Power Church in order to conduct this monitoring mission. And to follow the first mission, I conducted the active monitoring mission in 2002 and 2004. Also survey with the seismic structure survey in this chart. You have 4 Baroque churches with the World Heritage, Power Church, and the Santa Maria Church, and the San Agustin Church in Manila, and Miangao Church in Panay Island. So this is the power church constructed in the beginning of 18th century. This is the Santa Maria Church in the beginning, constructed in the beginning of 19th century, World Heritage, and I conducted the structure survey in 2002. This church, this what shows the Church of San Agustin in Manila, constructed in the 16th century, and the earthquake monitoring was conducted by Fiborgs at the time. And this is the Miangao Church, the World Heritage Church in Panay Island. This picture is the perspective of the Power Church. As you can see here, this church was called earthquake baroque, characterized by wall structure with thick walls and buttresses. And this mission was conducted in cooperation with NCCA, National Museum, and NHI, and Fiborgs, and Public Works and Highways, and Japanese-Philippine, and Philippine Ecomos in 2000. This is the map of active fault and historical earthquake around the power. And as you can see here, the power is located in the area, very seismic area. You can see here. So this church was affected by the historical earthquakes. In this church, long history of this church, the historical earthquakes hit in 1952 and 1527 and 1983, and the two of earthquakes in 76 and 1927. This church was slightly or moderately damaged, but structurally survived. And this shows the typical wall section of our church. Inner level prefair concrete, local concrete, and exterior coral stone, covered with coral stone. The same structure as the stone churches in Bohol Island and Cebu Island, affected by the Bohol earthquake. So this shows the coral stone and exterior coral stone of our church. Irregular coral stones were used in this church. And this is the facade wall, main facade wall. You can see here the tilting of the facade wall. So the UNESCO Philippines suffer worried about the seismic safety of this tilting of the facade wall for the seismic safety program. So the main purpose of the monitoring mission was to survey the to survey this tilting of facade wall. So this is a measurement of the formation of the main facade wall. So about 100 millimeters. So the formation of larger than 100 millimeters was observed, and very complicated shape of the deformation you can see here. And the separation of facade wall, side wall, separation of facade wall and the side wall, as you can see here, the large gaps. And I proposed very simplified low-cost monitoring technique of cracks using glass plate. So they install the glass plate to the gaps and to check the movement of the cracks. If the glass plates are broken, so the cracks will move. So the not stable, this side not stable. Anyway, so at the time we consider the possible cause of tilting of main facade, irregular settlement of foundation, responsible strong motion during the past earthquake, and long-term deformation of structural material that have been deteriorated. And fourth one, the deformation of local traditional concrete during and or just after the construction. And as a result of survey, at the time we concluded the fourth reason, deformation of local traditional concrete just after the construction would cause the such deformation. After the deformation. At the time, we conducted the dynamic microelectronic measurement to know the fundamental characteristics of the structure. For example, natural period, the natural mode of the structure. So this is a spectral ratio of wall top to base by microelectronic measurement. And the natural period of the 0.1 hertz were observed at the time. Very short period, natural period. And we made the recommendation at first mission in 2000. And so 7 items recommended after the first mission in 2000. And I proposed the flow chart of the study, further study to identify the cause of the deformation, as well as to propose the structural restoration of the further wall. And this is also recommendation at second mission in 2002 for fire charge. So monitoring of movement of cracks, and not so simplified method, but the scientific method should be installed in this wall at the time. And I proposed. And further study necessary for evaluation of structure stability and prediction of land motion induced by large earthquake in the future. And the structure analysis should be needed for the discussion and the proposing structural restoration of power charge at the time. And we helped them to conduct the survey of the church and conducted the mechanical test using samples. So this table shows the material mechanical properties of mortar, cornerstone, and bricks. As you can see here, density. Please focus on the density at the upper second line. The density is of mortar and cornerstone is 1.5. Light materials were used, not so heavy. So very porous material was used. And the local meeting was held at the Power municipality, and the mayor with local committee and the NCC expert attended this local meeting, and we discussed how to restore the power charge, because they have the master plan to develop the tourists for sightseeing of tourists. So, and they discussed with us how to restore our church at the time. And I would like to move to the next topic. So, recommendation for the analysis, conservation, and structure restoration of architectural heritage. As a member of ICOMOS and ISCALSA member. Today, I pick up 10 articles. The first one is the multidisciplinary approach, and a multidisciplinary team should work together from the beginning. And the second one is the minimum structural intervention, the most important concept of the structural restoration of the heritage structure. So to keep intervention to the minimum necessary to guarantee safety and durability and with the least damage to heritage values. The third, diagnosis should be based on historical information, qualitative and quantitative approach. And the choice between traditional and innovative technologies and techniques should be determined on a case-by-case basis with reference given to those that are least invasive and most compatible with heritage values, consistent with the need for safety and durability. And fifth article, the design of intervention should be based on full understanding of the kinds of actions that have caused damage and observed in the future. And the sixth is the concept of intervention. We should respect as far as possible the original concept and construction techniques and historical value of the structure and historical evidence. And seventh, the decision on intervention should be made by the team as a whole and taking into account both the structure, safety, and consideration of history chapter. Communicate to the owners in a simple, non-technical manner. And eighth, the characteristics of the material used in restoration work should be compatible with existing materials and should be established, including long-term effect. And the monitoring. Any proposal for intervention must be accompanied by a program of monitoring and control to be carried out. And the last one is the explanatory report, a detailed specialist report provided for decision on intervention on board acquired information, the diagnosis, including the safety evaluation and any decision to intervene. So I would like to show the subtopics and the shaking table test of full-scale model for safer housing in Philippines. Apart from the heritage structure, I have been involved in the disaster prevention project for Philippines for ordinary houses. So JICA TST project, and we conducted the large scale, full scale model. Two model structure were constructed on the large shaking table. Left-hand side, model B, non-engineered, not compatible with Philippine code. And the right-hand side model is compatible with your country code. And I will show the movie. very popular material, construction material, CHB, concrete hollow block was used. Okay. If you are interested, I will be able to send you this movie. Okay, please contact me. Last two slides. In addition, so Pibroch Station in Tavilo also recorded the earthquake motion, but I hope that the data will be opened for scientific approach. They have not so opened earthquake data yet, so I hope. This sort motion data is very so helpful for the seismic scientific approach and from the earthquake engineer point of view. Okay? Thank you. So I hope that our activities will help for rehabilitation of damaged cultural heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. For next speaker, she will be talking about designing a temporary church towards disaster rehabilitation case of Maribohol, Bohol. A researcher at CNRS Paris, please help me welcome Ms. Rumi Okazaki. A round of applause, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Rumi Okazaki. On the program, my title is researcher at CNRS, the French National Center of Scientific Research, but I am also teaching in several universities in Japan, especially Fuji Women's University, Professor Miyake's university, and also Kyoto University of Art and Design of Shigeru Ban's studio. And so today I'd like to talk on behalf of my team. We are working with the group headed by Professor Miyake and Shigeru Ban with the disaster rehabilitation projects of temporary housings in Danbantayan in Cebu, and also we are about to start the temporary church project in Bohol. So today, because it's a cultural heritage symposium, I'd like to focus more on the Maribohol Church. For those of you who might not know so much about Shigeru Ban, he is a Japanese architect who has been working a lot on rehabilitation, disaster rehabilitation projects such as this church in Kobe in Japan. This was meant to be a temporary church in Kobe, but actually now people use it so much so that it was moved to Taiwan, and the Taiwanese people still use it. Also, this is not a church, it's a music theater in L'Aquila, Italy. So he has been working on several public buildings such as these buildings and also temporary shelters. So after we have heard about the Bohol earthquake and also the typhoon we were very shocked, and we wanted to do something. And Shigeru Ban, as always, he immediately came to Cebu and Bohol with Professor Miyake, who has been working in the Philippines for 2 years now with the University of San Carlos. So also in Japan, we had a lot of news about Tacloban Leyte, but so because of the high tide, a lot of houses were damaged, and we really thought it is like the image that we saw in the Great East Japan earthquake. The tsunami image is very similar to this. But despite these images, there are many other places that were affected by the typhoon and also the earthquake, especially in the northern part of Cebu in Dambantayan, where we are building. There were many houses destroyed. It's in the statistic, it says that 19,850 out of 21,000 houses were totally damaged. So you can see how bad it is. But the international attention went directly to Leyte, so not many helps were reached here. So we decided to go to Cebu, which is also the home island of the University of San Carlos. So this is just the map of the typhoon to show our Japanese audiences, especially that here, this is where we work in Dambantayan for the temporary shelters. So you can see that here is Leyte, and it is hardly hit, just as this island. And also, if you compare the historical disasters in the Philippines, Typhoon Yolanda, we call it number 30, Typhoon Sanjugo in Japanese, but this was one of the worst natural disasters in the Filipino history. So this really meant a lot for us to come and to build the houses. This is the initial sketch that Shigeru made after his visit to Cebu and Bohol in November. So this is what we made with the student volunteers of Japanese students and also from University of San Carlos. So now in Dambantayan there are 3 houses like this, and this August we are also planning to build 3 more houses. So we hope that we were able to help a little bit, and also this kind of program is very efficient for education because the students are also learning and participating in this kind of work. So, of course, Shigeru's signature material, the paper tube, is inside, but the walls are made with amakan and cocoa lumbers, together with the roofing of the nipa material. So I just wanted to give you this example before I explain about the church, because I think we learned a lot about working in the Philippines by making this shelter. For example, we ordered the paper tubes. The paper tubes are quite, it's a nice material to use because you can find it most anywhere in the world. This time we ordered the paper tubes from Manila, so they were shipped. So it was supposed to be 2 meters, but actually when it arrived it was in different dimensions. So this was one unexpected thing that happened first. Also, we had some problems about waterproofing the tubes because of the liquid that we used. We couldn't find a very nice liquid to paint on, and there were many air bubbles, and it was too shiny, and the paper tube became too brown. So when we make the church, we actually want to improve this kind of things. Of course, for the shelter, it was not such a big problem, but still, you can see that the colors are not so even. So if we can improve this, we could make a better design for the church. Also, we noticed that when we were drying the paper tubes, the sun was too strong, so the paper tubes became bent a little bit. It curved. So we had to press it with the tables to make it very straight again. So these kind of things that really unexpected things that happened while working here. These are some of the images from the workshop. We had to also ride the jeepney to Danbantayan for 5 hours. This was quite an adventure. Also the natural beautiness that we experienced. For us, this kind of scenery is so beautiful. And for the church, we hope that we can integrate some of these kind of images of Philippine beauty into the design. So moving to the Bohol earthquake, as many people have already mentioned, the Bohol island was struck by the earthquake, and the western coast was very much damaged. And so we went to see several churches right after the earthquake in November with Professor Miyake and Shigeru Ban, and we had several meetings on where we could build churches. Some of the houses were also destroyed, so we were thinking about building the temporary shelters here as well, but finally it didn't happen in Bohol. This is when Shigeru was here in November. We visited Bohol, and here in the Kappa Theater there was a big class or a session introducing about his works, and some meetings with the local representatives and also the university deans and staff members. So this was a very efficient meeting, and after this we tried to come up with a nice design. We are still on process of designing. It's taking quite a long time because there were some things that we had to calculate. For example, the strengths of the paper tubes. They were very different from the Japanese paper tubes, so we had to do a compression test and so on. So it has been taking a little bit of time, but we are still enthusiastic to keep moving the project. So this is the final site that we were proposed. We had intense discussion with especially Father Ted and the local architect, and they have proposed to make the new church here. This is the Google Map image before the earthquake, so you can still see the Latin Cross building here. But actually in Maribohog, the church was destroyed. So here there is the destroyed church, but here you have a very big space. So this is the proposed site for us. And this is the image of the church. So you can see that everything is destroyed except for the tiles on the floor. And this is the site plan. So here you can see the Latin cross, and this is the proposed site. So it's quite spacious. It's larger than the actual church, the original church. But we have to consider that some part of this site has to be kept for the materials that will be preserved to actually reconstruct this church. This is the site, so we have a very nice open space. And this is the church proposal that Shigeru made. So initially it's a circular plan with, of course, the paper tubes. And initially we were thinking of making bamboo trusses and wooden louvers to cover the paper tube structures, but we have had some modifications later on. And from the sketch, the students made this kind of funky-looking model. It has a Nipa roofing. It has a bad hair day. And the trusses, I think there's too many of the trusses, but the students try to imitate his sketch as much as they can, so you can actually get the image of what they try to do. But the problem of this church was that the diameter was not big enough. This is about 10 meters in diameter, which is not so big for a church, and there is not enough seating inside. And also the functional components of the church could not be set inside, so we had to make the area larger. However, the problem was that making the diameter bigger was not so ideal, because you cannot make this span so big with these bamboo trusses. And also we had some discussion about the centrally planned church, or this kind of Latin cross church, or this with the church with an axis. So we are still discussing a lot about this kind of plans. This is the thing that I was talking about. This is the original materials of the old churches that we have to keep on the site. So some space would have to be preserved on the site. And so after we made a circular plan of the church, we discussed with Shigeru that one circle is not enough for the church area, and then he proposed to make 2 circles instead of 1. And this is what he got the idea from. This is the Scarpa famous circular wall. This is just an image, but we actually made it into a plan. And we also discussed about this plan with Professor Melba, and she told us maybe the altar would be nice if we made it in the middle. So we tried to make another model with this. But then the problem was the roofing, because here it's not so difficult to make, but if you have 2 circles, the roofing is so difficult to make. And this is one example or image that we considered, because this is the, in Vatican City, in St. Peter's, you have 4 posts in the altar, and this kind of corresponds to this plan where you have 4 posts here. So we thought, oh, maybe this could be an idea, but we are still brainstorming about the idea. We are